What makes a man worthy? This is a question that every little boy's heart asks. It is deep in there. Heck, it's in every young man's heart, especially as he kind of makes his way and starts life among his elders, looking for older men to pick him up, bring him along, and say, hey, I see something in you, and I want to develop it. They want to find out what they have to do to earn respect, because it's something we crave, right? It's also at the heart of Beowulf. Now, you might ask, what can a 1,000-year-old story teach me about being a man in the 2020s? Well, let me tell you, Mr. Modern Magoo, that it's not just an old story. There is some deep, deep truth there that we're going to explore in the next few videos. The reason it's got deep truth is it's not just some epic story about the pre-medieval era up in the Nordic wastes and the moors. It's not about the monster and the hero. It's actually got a lot of Christian depth that make this a story with true eternal values, not just modern ones, for their era or ours. And as we explore them, I think you'll see really quickly that there's a lot for this story to teach us as modern men. Welcome. It's Imago Dad here. I am Brandon Wilborn. This is Imago Dad, rather, the channel. But this is what we talk about, is faith and masculinity and manliness and fatherhood, but through the lens of these ancient stories or epic stories, whether they're biblical or pagan in this case, but with a Christian lens. And if that sounds like something that's interesting to you, how can these old stories teach us how to be men now? How can we look back at our heritage and find truth to help us live today? Then I invite you to subscribe and maybe like the video. Share it if you think here's another guy who could get value from it. Back to Beowulf, and I love we have this background of dense fog as we start talking about this story. It just seems so fitting. If you have only seen the modern film versions, whether it's the movies or the Netflix series, you don't really know Beowulf. They are not good guides to the actual story. They try to make it sexy and interesting for a modern audience, and they kind of ruin some of the messaging. So, if you haven't read it before, or haven't read maybe a retelling of it, let me give you a summary version. There's a king, and he's been a good king, but in his age, all of a sudden, something terrible happens. And he builds a mead hall to celebrate all the successes with his men. And a monster named Grendel, some kind of ogre, it's not really clear exactly what he is, but he decides, I hate this. I can't let these men celebrate and enjoy life. And it actually pains him. He's so wicked. And he starts a crusade against these men, just enjoying the benefits of all the work they've done. And he busts in on the very first night of his reign of terror and slaughters a bunch of dudes, carries off 30 men in a sack, and eats them. And for 12 years, every night they are afraid of this creature. And for 12 years, he destroys this mead hall, kills guys, seemingly left and right, maybe every night, maybe it's just that they're afraid every night, but he's there. And King Hrothgar has no defense. He can't go back. He's not strong enough. He's getting old, but none of his men can hurt this thing because he has enchantments on him so that no normal weapon can damage him. Beowulf hears about this. He is from the Geats, whereas Hrothgar leads the Danes. And Hrothgar was actually a historical figure to some degree, but Beowulf is potentially just made up. He's the hero. He's the folklore, the tall tale guy. And he's kind of like our Paul Bunyan or something. He goes across the sea with some of his men, and they decide they're going to defeat Grendel. They show up. There's lots of courteous speeches given about bravery and honor and defeating this monster. And, oh, well, this monster's not been able to be harmed by anyone. How are you going to do it? He just makes this vow finally that he's going to do it. But he says, I'm not going to do it with weapons because this monster doesn't know weapons. So it's not fair for me to try to do that. Because he didn't understand yet that Grendel couldn't be harmed. But he determines, I'm going to go after this monster with my bare hands and with no armor. Just me and my shirt and my bare hands, because I've got the grip of 30 men. They wrestle that night because Grendel comes every night. And in the wrestling match, Beowulf grips him so hard that Grendel is suddenly afraid and he's terrified. He fears not just for his body, but in his soul he is terrified that this man finally has matched his strength. And so he tries to run. And Beowulf has such a grip on him that in the process, Grendel rips off his own arm to a flea. And so this is a mortal wound. They follow the blood trail, and it leads into a lake. And now they know, okay, this creature is probably dead. It is super slick here because of frozen fog. So they celebrate, and Hrothgar gives Beowulf these great treasures. But that night, Grendel's mother shows up for revenge because they've killed her son. She does just as much terror, killing a bunch of guys. And then Beowulf has to go fight her. And he does so. He is eventually successful. And he takes his gifts from Hrothgar for his successful adventure. He goes back home to his own king. And he gives that king a huge portion of the treasure, most of it, in fact, to honor him. And later on, Beowulf becomes king. He rules for 50 years. He's an old, old man. And a thief wakes up a dragon. And then he is forced to fight this dragon to protect his own people. And in the process, Beowulf kills the dragon, but is mortally wounded himself. That's a summary of the tale, but back to the question. What makes a man worthy? The poem actually has at the first page of Tolkien's translation, which is the one I've been reading lately, by the way. Tolkien does a great translation in kind of a more of a prose poem, so it's a little bit easier to grasp. And his commentary helps with understanding some of it as well. Although he does get off, excuse me for the burp, he does get off track in the linguistics of it sometimes because he's a linguist. But he understands the culture better than we do because he studied it for a long time. So it's worth taking his cues. Anyway, back to the question. What makes a man worthy? The line is, by worthy deeds in every folk is a man ennobled. Line 20 of the poem. And when it says this, it's talking not just about the deeds that are done, but about generosity and gracious gifting in order to prove your nobleness, to prove that you are a man of worth. The modern answer to what makes a man worthy is typically revolving around success and looks. Have you made the money? Have you gotten the certifications? Do you have the muscles? Are you tall and attractive? Are you young? These are questions that make us go, ooh, yeah, that guy's got the thing. Let's listen to him. He knows what he's doing. Because all of us don't feel like we know what we were doing. So someone who looks successful in our minds has done something right, and he is worthy. I say that's the modern answer, but really it's the human answer. Because you can go back to the scriptures, to ancient Israel. And after the times of the judges, long before Beowulf was written, you get the Israelites begging for a king, and they're excited about Saul because he's a head taller than everyone else. He looks like the strong man that can defeat their enemies. So really, it's the human issue. And in choosing King David, God tells the prophet Samuel, man looks at the outward appearance, but I look at the heart. So yeah, it's not even a modern answer. It's just our human nature. The only difference being we no longer live in a very Christian culture. So the human answer becomes more common and more popular. The reason that Beowulf has an answer to this is because it is coming from a Christian perspective, where the modern says the outcome matters over the process or over the method. It ends up becoming an ends justify the means perspective. If the outcome looks good, it doesn't matter how that person got there. In contrast, what Beowulf shows us is that the outcome is important. It's not nothing. They do want success. Beowulf would not have achieved glory if he had lost to Grendel. He would have been forgotten, and nobody would have told the story. So his success matters, but it was more important to them how he engaged. Did he do it nobly? Was he valiant and gallant in his efforts? And even beyond that, what did he do with that success? Did he simply revel in his own glory? Did he continually go back to pump himself up and get prideful? And was he gracious and generous with the things he had won? Those are the questions that the poem decides are the ones that really matter. I'm moving my notes around here. All right. We see it right at the end of part 1. After he's beaten Grendel, after he's beaten his mother, we learn that his own people didn't trust him. As a youth, he had some adventures. As a youth, he killed some monsters in his own land, and he defeated some sea dragons or sea demons while he was in a swimming match with a friend. But that didn't earn him worth. They did not trust him, regardless of defeating monsters that would have hindered their fleets. He was actually a risk, a threat to his own king and his king's young son, because here you have this man with superhuman strength, but he hasn't proved his loyalty yet. And so we learn at the end of part 1, after he comes home, line 1830. Thus did the son of Ecgtheow, renowned in battle, show his manhood in fair deeds, bearing himself honorably. He only gets that line. He showed himself his manhood in fair deeds and honor after he has, 1, been courteous and gracious and respectful to an elder, Hrothgar, who couldn't defeat the monster. He's defeated the monster, and then he returns to his own king and gives him the bulk of the bounty. That's when he is deemed trustworthy. And I want to point out two things about that. Why it finally mattered was not just that he gave the gold, and it wasn't that he defeated the monster. It's what makes this a Christian story. And Tolkien points out that it's a Christian story told in a land that was still hanging on to some paganism. And so the reason is, yeah, his adventures were successful. And yeah, he knew he would receive glory if he was successful. But he actually went and did those acts of valor and bravery and courage for the benefit of someone else. It was a Christian idea of selfless sacrifice that gained him honor and not just notoriety. It was the idea that I'm going to go and take on something that is life-threatening for someone else. And he does it twice. It's not just the first time. It's unbeknownst to him, he has to take on 2 monsters instead of 1. That is a Christian ideal. And for kings back then, kind of holding on to respect for this pagan history, the idea of self-sacrifice, they were more likely probably to be looking at self-glorification. And Beowulf gives them a wonderful example of avoiding that. The second thing is he honors his king and proves loyalty by giving up the treasure he had earned. It was his. He had earned it. And yet in their culture, if he had hoarded it himself, he would have proved himself both disloyal and ungracious and untrustworthy. So that any young men who were looking at following him would have said, he's not willing to share, which was one of the big values that they had, was generosity and hospitality, especially to the men who were trying to serve under your throne. So by doing both, self-sacrifice and generosity, Beowulf proves his worth. We can think of that, and I think the modern gloss is, well, that was just their culture. That was what they valued. I say it goes deeper. If you as a man want to climb the ranks, even now blind ambition may get you there. But what kind of man have you become? This is the question that Beowulf asks us. Are you willing to share glory with others, or do you always have to take the credit? Are you willing to share the rewards with others? Or do you always have to keep it all for yourself? That goes for men in high positions and men in low positions. It goes for fathers. I think in summary, we need to answer that question. Are we just looking at the outcome? Or does it matter how we got there? And does it matter what kind of man we became in the process? Those are the questions I'd love to see answers to in the comments. Does the process matter? Does it matter who we become? When we reach success, and does the man we actively act it out as, that just doesn't even make sense, but does the man and the character we show, rather, that's the question I'm getting at, does the character we show in the process matter? Another question I'd love to have answered is, what are the deeds that would ennoble us now in our modern world? What are the things that are worthy of honor? If we can answer that question, man, that could really change our culture. For me, I'm asking this as a writer, as a Christian writer specifically. Here is a Christian centuries ago, 1,000 years before me, and he is not afraid to blatantly put Christian theology into the mouths of pagan kings and to put those values in place so that the people around him could have something good to look up to that was also true, not just part of their culture, but an eternal value. And for me, I'm writing stories that I hope hold those eternal values, that I aim to put that in the stories, but I also don't want to be clunky about it. So there's this balance I'm trying to walk of being truthful and honest, but not battering people over the head with a sermon. Whether I've accomplished that is up to readers. So which you can look me up on my other stories and see whether that's the case. I will be posting one of the books here in audio format later this month, so you can hopefully watch that. As a dad, I'm asking this question: what am I willing to endure to show my son what is good, to serve him and to help him build loyalty in his life, and so that he can have a better start than I did? Those are the types of questions that I want to answer for myself. And it's honestly getting long. So, final question I'm going to leave you with: what are the worthy deeds that will build trust and honor today, so that we can be not just enjoying a story like Beowulf, but actually try to live up to its ideals? And then how can you pursue them? Leave a comment if you got some answers. I don't have all of them for sure. If you think this is a great topic to be discussing, then please like, share, subscribe. If you want other guys to join us on this talk about Beowulf and good stories, please share it. And finally, there will be a link to a more polished version of this on my Substack down in the description. Until then, till next time, go, men. Find generosity and honor in your heart, and find deeds that may ennoble you. God bless.